You are listening to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks.
Wargo Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with my buddy, Jared Davis. We barely squeaked out a win against Georgia State. It was a win. It was an ugly comeback at the end, but it still is a win. And I think that's about as much as we can hope for. I mean, this could have easily been, I kept coming back to, Jared, games that I'm thinking about, big coaches losing to smaller and inferior teams. Like, I'm thinking about the Sabins of the world losing to Louisiana Monroe.
Oh, boy.
And Harsin somehow squeaked out this one. And Jared, I know both of us were kind of freaking out a little bit during the game, but we did win. Have you calmed down? Have you been able to gather your thoughts about this?
I was calm the whole time, AJ. What are you talking about?
Are you an Auburn fan?
Yeah, for those that don't know, I'm in a chat with AJ. He knows I was not calm at all. Yeah, they mentioned at some point, I think that Georgia State coach somehow has a connection with Appalachian State, and they mentioned it early in the game, and I'm like, oh no. Because, the one we all remember was Appalachian State beating Michigan.
Oh, yes.
And Georgia State's not on that level. Georgia State's a Sun Belt. Appalachian State was 1AA at the time. But when they said that, I'm like, oh, no. There's a connection to it. This isn't going to be a good day.
No.
Yeah. But, yeah, I've come back down. Actually, a very exciting game. You just don't – my kids loved it because they don't realize that we're supposed to destroy Georgia State.
Right.
So they were super excited, thinking we're now the best team in America.
Well, and what I was also thinking, I feel like most fans coming to the game, myself included, thought we were going to beat Georgia State by at least a handful of scores. And this felt like in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes left to go in the game, it felt like an Iron Bowl. Like we are competing, clawing, hoping to beat Alabama, and yeah, it's still just Georgia State. And so I feel like the fans got their money's worth out of this game.
Oh, they got their money's worth. There is no doubt. That was if you take away all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, it was a great game.
Yeah. I just hate that literally it felt like at least 55 minutes of the game, Auburn's offense and defense kind of didn't show up the way we expected them to.
Well, I think I planted that in your brain. I think you corrected me before we came on. The defense didn't show up for 30 minutes. The defense played very well in the second half. I think Georgia State went a little conservative, and that helped, but we got back to stuff in the run. You're not going to run on us, and that was due to Zacoby McClain. I think without a doubt, AJ, we now know who the MVPs of the defense are, and that's Owen Papo and Zacoby.
Yeah.
And if you got to roll with one, I'll go Zacoby because that man – they didn't get anything when he came back, and that was about the only thing we changed, I think, was bringing him in.
Yeah, and even the defensive coaches after the game said, we made some minor tweaks, but they didn't really change up what they were doing. Even Derek Mason said, I didn't change how he was calling the game on defense because he thought we had a good plan. And I think it did come down to us kind of sleepwalking into this game and bringing not as much energy as we needed to. And Georgia State capitalized off of that. We looked so flat on defense for the first half. Second half, defense turned it around, said, we need to play tough Auburn defense. And what did we do? We did that. And we allowed 0 points in the second half. And I feel like that's cleaning up your act in the second half. It's a good thing. But I feel like at the same time, if we do that against LSU or Georgia, anybody else in the SEC in the first half and allow a team to put up 24 in the first half against you, it is not good news. You're going to have a tough time coming back from that. And I think Auburn's kind of fortunate that we were able to come back and get this victory when our defense, in a way, didn't live up to what we had hoped and what we think Auburn's defense, just talent-wise, is. I'm going to go ahead and put a little blame on – I feel like that was Derek Mason. And I think Derek Mason's preparation for this team, getting his guys ready, wasn't what it needed to be. And I really hope this doesn't happen again. But if it does, I think Derek Mason's leash is going to get pretty short real quick. Because with me, it's already getting pretty short. Just saying, I know we're switching defenses and stuff, but if you're struggling against Georgia State, who knows what it's going to be like against a competent offense that can move the ball like a lot of SEC offenses can.
Yeah, I think they weren't a predominantly passing team, but in the first half they didn't have any trouble like nobody has. And I think Mason, I don't think he will. I think he needs to just scrap the plan right now and go man. Apparently his plan's kind of a complicated zone. Somebody made the point of like, look, get your guys in and get your recruiting class in. Work on it again next summer, spring and summer. But right now you got to do what's going to win you games right now. And I don't think that zone's going to win us games. Yeah. Or we're going to struggle to win games with that zone.
Yeah, I think that puts more pressure on the offense when you have wide receivers that are still young and an offensive line that against good opponents has done decent, but against Georgia State, we look silly. Our offensive line just looked like it was getting owned every single play. Like, even guys like Tank Bigsby and Drequez Hunter, who they see a little seam and they're gone. We weren't getting those big run plays just because the offensive line wasn't opening up those holes this game. So I feel like there's a lot of places to blame for this loss. I don't think it was on any one person. I think it was just an overall offense and defense didn't do what they were supposed to.
I will say real quick before we move on, to come back from that deficit, one of the big keys is you have to stop giving up points. Mm-hmm. And so they did that.
Yeah.
It was bad in the first half. As bad as it was, they didn't give up another point. And if they do, we probably don't win that game.
No, I don't think you do because, what was it, like 30 seconds left or 50 seconds? It was under a minute, and we were down by 5. And if we give up even another field goal, that's tough. That's a tough way to come back, even tougher than what it was. So, there's a lot of growing, and I keep thinking about growing pains that's going on right now. And Auburn's struggling right now offensively and defensively trying to figure that out. And it's about to hit us hard with SEC play coming up. And we need to get our acts together, move forward, and I think we have to make some changes. And I think one of those changes, and we can go ahead and talk about it, Jared, is what Harsin decided to do with quarterback. And at the end of the third quarter, it was pretty evident like Bo wasn't having his best day. He was making overthrows. He was making bad decisions. Still didn't end up with an interception, but lots of mistakes. And I think Harsin was just like, Bo, I've given you your shot. We're putting TJ in. We need something else. And so, Jared, I want to kind of talk about what you thought about when Harsin put in Bo Nix at the end of the third quarter, or he took out Bo Nix and put TJ Finley in. What did you think of that situation?
I feel bad for Bo at the end of the day. It was not entirely his fault. But I appreciate Harsin putting the team ahead of, what any history or legacy or anything like that. He basically said, I know who you are, but at this current moment, it ain't working. So I got to give another kid a shot. And he did. And he put Finley in, and he made a point. And he's trying to take a little pressure off. But he said, look, we had tried every running back we had. We had tried every receiver we had. We had not tried every quarterback we had.
Yeah.
So, and we still didn't. You could go to Davis. But I think it was the right call. TJ's not going to win a Heisman. And people are pointing out, slow down. Did you see the overthrows? I went back and rewatched it, okay? There were a few overthrows, but the guy came totally cold off the bench. And there was some really good throws. And there was some keeping plays alive, keeping eyes downfield. The throw to Canyon may have been his best. Avoiding pressure, rolling out, hitting him right on the sideline. And then Canyon made a great catch.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of good, more good than bad. Here's my thing, and then I'll let you talk. I think the deal comes down to this, really, when you're talking about who should start. I think with Bo, we have enough on tape. We know who Bo is. That's what you're going to get with Bo. If that's what you want, you roll with that. TJ, he may be worse than Bo, but we don't know. There's an unknown there, and I think he earned himself with that comeback, that 98-yard drive. I think he earned the ability to say, hey, it could be better. Let's give me a shot.
Yeah, and one other thing, I mean, I think I don't know if this is true, but it kind of seemed like it was as soon as TJ Finley was announced and he walked out on the field at the end of the third quarter, half of Auburn's bench was jumping up and down. Like, they were energized to see TJ Finley go out there. I don't know if I'm not trying to like say there's like a locker room controversy or anything like that. I just think that the players were just like, I think we know what we're going to get with Bo for the rest of the game. Let's see if TJ can do it. And they were wanting to get behind TJ. And I think it showed. I mean, we had some incredible catches, and players played hard when TJ Finley was on the field. I think the same can be said for when Bo was on the field in previous games. Auburn players have played really well with Bo Nix too. So it's like, at this point, TJ Finley has some momentum. He's got some even the players behind him, and I think that says something. I think TJ should get a shot at continuing to be at least a portion of the offense, if not the starter, and that's really ultimately up to Harsin. I mean, Harsin had the guts to pull Bo out, and I think that says a lot. And TJ Finley coming in there really doing a good job of essentially kind of managing the game. And I mean, it took the 98-yard drive for us to get ahead, and TJ did that. He got the guys down the field, and it worked. So
I think the jubilation could have even been, all right, Harsin's doing what needs to be done. Like, hey, like you said, we're swapping other guys out. So it could have been more that. If you listen to his post game, TJ, he's a hard guy not to root for. Seems very humble, seems very educated, and honestly, as soon as he scored, he did one quick celebration, and then he immediately looked over the sideline and told the kid, like, stay off the field. We're going for two. Yep. So that shows you he knows the situation.
Mm-hmm.
He was not overwhelmed by it. He knew exactly what they needed to do next. That, believe it or not, this blows my mind. That play call, Shedrick Jackson said it was, and I went back and watched. That was a fade route. It was supposed to be a fade route, and if you watch TJ, he pulls it back down because it wasn't there. Yep. He didn't just throw it. So he pulls it back down, scrambles, buys time. Credit to Shedrick for getting open. Also, one other thing, we were driving on the previous drive, and I'm not trying to make TJ out to be a hero, but we were driving on the previous drive, and then Tank fumbles the ball entering the red zone.
Yeah.
So that's not TJ's fault.
No.
And I'm not blaming Tank. That stuff happens. But people want to say, well, he had terrible drives before then, because some people are defending Bo, right? And I understand. That drive before that, we were about to enter the red zone, and
it was like,
Tank fumbles.
It was at like the 25, 30-yard line. It was like right in front of me in the stadium. And I was like, oh, crap, of course this is going to happen. But, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think if Tank holds on to that ball, we have a chance of scoring there too. So, I mean, it did come down to that final drive, but if Tank doesn't fumble, we might have gotten the lead there, and it would have been a little bit different of the way that game played out. One other thing I did want to talk about, and I feel like this is kind of a bigger, kind of a Brian Harsin mentality, is discipline, and that's what he has been preaching to his team, is have good discipline. And I think that's a big ask for guys at this point. I feel like there's a lot of undisciplined plays, and I hope Harsin buckles down and says, guys, we got to play disciplined ball, because I mean that gets you missed assignments on defense, which has been the issue the last 2 weeks against Penn State and now Georgia State, where you let guys run free, and they're going to make you pay for it. But it also gets you unnecessary fouls, like false starts or personal fouls after the play. And you're just like, come on, guys. Like, stop it. Like, it's totally unnecessary. And I really hope that we figure out and Harsin gets them back on the discipline train that he keeps preaching about. If we do, I think a lot of those penalties that we kind of gripe about, oh, we had a great play, oh, but it was called back because of a penalty. Like, I think a lot of that stuff doesn't happen. And I think we are talking bigger about, oh, he had that great run. It wasn't called back. Yes. Awesome. We move forward. And so I would definitely want to see that coming out of it. But I did want to kind of come back to this because you had mentioned, that last fourth down play was apparently a fade route. And under Gus, I remembered a lot of people saying, oh, the screen route sucks. Don't do it. And yet we still did. But it feels like the Bobo Harsin era, it's kind of that fade route. And would you agree with that? Like, that's kind of the crap, don't do it kind of route?
I mean, I don't know. It's such a low percent. Like, it's something ridiculously low, even in the NFL. If you're going to do it, you do it to Capers or Canyon. You don't throw it to Shedrick Jackson. No offense, Shedrick. You need somebody that's tall that can go over the DB in case the DB is covering it well. You don't throw a fade route to Shedrick Jackson. That's my opinion. I've only played NCAA on the Xbox. But I just don't think that's what you do. So I don't get that. I don't realize. I feel like we're still not utilizing the middle of the field enough. I don't understand why you don't maybe stack one side and have a guy run. I don't know what we needed, like 9 yards. I mean, I know it would have gotten us to the 2, but I feel like that's enough where you can run something over the middle, give yourself a couple of options. I don't know, fade route, you have one option. Luckily, he didn't just throw it, because if he did, this is a whole different podcast, in my opinion. Now, giving them credit, and this is what, if we run this on 4th and 2 at Penn State, we're undefeated. The 2-point conversion was a beautiful play. They did flood that side of the field. There was 3 guys open. I mean, he could have take your pick. It was a great play, and they rolled him out, and that's what should have been done. And so maybe that's some positive signs moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same kind of scenario. Like, we did that on the 2-point conversion. We ran a different play, had multiple guys open. I think that's a positive sign that they're learning from their mistakes. I mean, we knew it was going to be a learning experience with Harsin and Bobo meshing their offenses, but it felt rough, and this is the roughness that I think we have to go through to get to the other side, because I think they are figuring things out. It's just slower than we're hoping.
What that game really was about is it shows that if we can't run the ball, and this is what it was with Gus, if we can't run the ball at will, we're going to struggle. And it doesn't matter who we're playing. And I don't know why we couldn't run the ball at will. I do know this. We need to go ahead and start getting on the transfer portal for the Georgia State defensive linemen, because they were whooping us.
Yeah.
And we're going to need some next year. So I say we get on that. I don't understand that, but we couldn't run it at will. And I also don't know what was up with Tank, because even though we didn't run great, I still think Jarquez probably averaged like 6 yards a carry. He seemed to be doing better. Tank was questionable, apparently, before the game, I heard, and he didn't seem to have the cut, even on the few that he might have had an option to get more yardage. It just didn't seem typical Tank.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, seeing him in person, he didn't seem like he had that fire and that focus that I feel like he had. And I think that's why, I mean, I'm thinking about a lot of the major drives when our offense was moving, Jarquez was in there, which is kind of weird to say, because I feel like Tank has been that guy. You put Tank in there, he gets the drives moving. But Jarquez stepped in there, and I feel like that's a positive, huge positive for Auburn moving forward, is having a guy like Jarquez that can step in there when Tank may not have been 100%, and keep the ball moving and do good things. So that was good to see. Also wanted to mention we did have Shivers back, so good to have him back. He got at least one really good carry that was like 26 yards, and then had at least one more that I think that one got stuffed a little bit. But hey, he's back, and I feel like if anything, he's just knocking off the rust and going to be ready for some SEC play.
2 more things real quick. Tank was not in at all on the final drive, and I don't know, some coaches are like, hey, if you fumble, you're out, and maybe that's the rule with Harsin. They also put Shivers in the slot position a couple of times yesterday. We didn't really utilize it, but I've been saying that needs to happen because of his speed. Get him on the drag route.
Yeah.
So I like to see that. We got to have him on the field, and I think we need help at receiver. So saw him in the slot a couple of times, and that kind of excited me.
Yeah, and I think that also frees him up, and I think we did it once, was that, speed sweep kind of handoff thing.
Yeah.
Because he can come across the field, hand it off to him. I mean, there's multiple things with his kind of speed you can easily do.
Hey, Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
I did want to talk slightly about, before we go over to defense, about our wide receivers, because I am starting to see Kobe Hudson bubble up to the top and be our go-to guy. I think without Kobe Hudson this game, I don't think we win this game. I mean, I know Shedrick caught the touchdown pass and all, but I don't think if Kobe's out there playing his butt off and getting huge third down catches or first down catches, like, I don't think we win. And I think we found our guy. If it's not going to be Shedrick Jackson or Kobe, it's probably going to be Kobe. And I know we also didn't have Demetrius Robertson out. I saw him on the sideline. He was on the bike, kind of keeping warm. He did have his helmet on a few times on the sideline, but I don't think he was 100%. I don't think the coaches were willing to put him out there if he wasn't 100%. So, but I do look at, I mean, he looked ready to go. So I expect him to probably be back for next week's game. What did you think of, Kobe's, his gutty performance? I mean, the way he played was, I mean, he's become, in my opinion, our best wide receiver.
I think Kobe seems to be focused and seems to be having fun. No.
Good one.
No, I agree with you, man, and that's and give credit to Anthony Schwartz. He said, in his parting statement, his exit interview, if you will, they said, "Who's the most ready?" And he said Kobe, and I think he's right. I think you're right. I think he went for 7 for 75 or something like that, catches. Really the only bad thing he's done all year was the fumble, and that stuff happens. So, I don't know what doghouse Capers and Canyon were in, but hopefully they're out of that, because They were huge yesterday. I mean, Capers had a couple of catches. Canyon had that amazing catch where he kept his feet in.
Yeah. And
they just looked apart, man. I mean, they're at least 6'3" plus, and you need those targets. We need all of them. The interesting thing is I don't think Robertson played number 0 for the transfer.
Yeah.
I don't know if we know the reason for that, but
I mean, I saw him on the medical bike. I mean, that was pretty much it. Like, I just don't think he was 100%, and coaches weren't willing to put him in.
Well, at the end of the day, I think Hudson is definitely. I agree with you. I think he's become the go-to. I do think we need to, look, I love Shedrick, and I think Shedrick is that guy, that fourth down guy. He's going to keep moving around. He's going to get open. But we don't need him to be our main target. I just think skill-wise, he has a limit.
Yeah.
And so we need Capers and Canyon to also start developing more, because that's how we're going to win ball games.
Yeah, I think so too. I also shout out Shedrick, because this was his first career touchdown as an Auburn Tiger, which That's pretty crazy. Like I could have swore he had at least one more, but he's played. I think this was his 32nd game, and this is his first touchdown. So big congrats to him. I mean, I probably sounded like I was putting him down, but I'm just saying I think he's their go-to guy. But I love to see Shedrick, who's obviously another solid wide receiver for us. So, it's the way things go. And maybe next week Sheg's our guy. I don't know. We'll see. I did want to mention this, and this was kind of it was just announced on Sunday that Auburn ended up firing their wide receiver coach, Cornelius Williams. And we have now promoted the former Boise State offensive coordinator / analyst to the wide receiver coach. Jared, what do you think of that? I mean, 4 games in, we fire our wide receivers coach.
I don't know. That's kind of crazy. The little bit we've seen, it does appear to just be on the field related. When something happens this quick, you always speculate, was there other things going on? But it appears to be on the field. I've heard potentially, lack of recruiting success. I've heard, just it's very apparent that the receivers are not performing well. Somebody made a point. They said, did this happen at halftime of the Georgia State game? And I kind of joked about it. Capers and Canyon had not been playing, and they played and made big plays in the second half. So I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know what to think about it. Hopefully it was, nothing serious, but and I hate it for that guy. And, but the wide receivers definitely need to be playing better.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, it's been we knew it was going to be an issue with the young guys, but I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Like, I feel like, and I know there was a couple of times where I feel like the wide receivers just didn't sometimes know the route to run or ran the incorrect route. And when that happens, I feel like that's sometimes, that's usually, if you're not coaching them and telling them this is what you do in this scenario, maybe that comes down to what Cornelius, he wasn't coaching his guys up and the way that they should run the routes and different scenarios that might have thrown. I don't know. Just kind of speculation a little bit there. Let's switch over and talk about defense and how it went against Georgia State. We've already mentioned, first half not great. Second half got things into gear. Coaches probably told them some things that I'm not allowed to say on the podcast.
We could put the little E beside it, the explicit.
Yeah, we could. So, I can start bleeping. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But I do think the defense got a talking to at half and started playing disciplined football, which is key. You need communication and discipline on defense to play well. And both of those things came together in the second half. We didn't really give up many big plays. And even if they did start moving the ball, we kept them out of the end zone and from scoring any points in the second half. So defense did its job in the second half. And like you mentioned, you had to have essentially a second half shutout by our defense if we were going to have a chance at coming back in this game. And they did their job. And I think that kind of energized the offense on our final drive. They knew it was their time to come out and actually score a touchdown. It took so long to score a touchdown on offense. Still makes me mad. But I did want to shout out our leading tackler for the game, and it was Chandler Wooten. So Chandler Wooten had to step in because both Papo and McClain were out. McClain was out for the first half. Papo didn't play at all. But Chandler Wooten, he got 12 tackles, and 6 of those were solo tackles. He was flying around, and I feel like every time during the game, if a big hit was laid, I feel like it was Wooten. Like, he was out there finding guys and hitting them, which was all. I'm a defensive player. I love seeing that. But yeah, I think it kind of shows. Yeah, we had a drop off without McClain and Papo, but Wooten was able to step up there and do well. I will say, I know Wesley Steiner had to come in there and play linebacker. I didn't specifically watch him most of the game, but I think McClain coming back in the second half kind of switched things up. We figured things out, and I think that helped our defense a lot. And McLean's definitely going to be a player that we need on defense for this season. On defense, I think, to go the way that we hope it will. So, any other kind of thoughts, Jared, about our defense?
No, I think you hit on all that. I mean, really, it's about, Zacoby is just so important. And if Owen's in, but Zacoby's not, maybe it doesn't get away from us. But losing both was a big deal. And secondary still scares me. I feel like Smoke Monday misses assignments more than he should as a senior, but then he also gets a pick six. So it's like he's kind of like bang or bust.
Yeah.
He doesn't always intercept it, but when he does, it's a touchdown.
He did that. Well, yeah, he had that against in 2019 Iron Bowl.
Iron Bowl.
Yeah.
He did it at Iron Bowl. He did it against Tennessee last year, maybe, that kind of sealed the – is that right, last year? I don't know. He had a 100-yard interception for a touchdown against Tennessee.
Yeah.
So, he's kind of – you don't ever know what you're getting with him either. Secondary is a little rough right now, if I'm being honest. And I don't know. I think it's more schematic than players, so I'm not trying to knock the players. I think if I'm Mason, I know I've said it. I go back and look at last year's film and say these guys did really well playing man. Let's just do that. But I don't know. I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Smoke. There were multiple times where I saw him and it felt like he was kind of a liability in coverage, and he left his guy open. And you're thinking, come on, like, you're a senior, like, don't do that. He even had like a holding call on one of the passes. I mean, those are kind of just dumb plays that I feel like Smoke is smarter than that. So I think that's just a charge at him to do better, and I think he is better than that. So he's wanting to get to the next level. He's wanting to get to the NFL, and he's got to make those things more of a priority to prove to the NFL that he can do it. Because I think in open field tackling, or if you send him on a blitz, he is one of the best in the game. But it's a matter of getting better coverage on a consistent basis that I think Smoke needs to improve on.
I agree.
All right, let's talk about the fun one. And by fun, I'm not being sarcastic. I mean, it was actually pretty fun. It was special teams. We got pretty good play from our special teams. I think the one bad play was that muff punt return. I think it was Javarius Johnson just dropped it. Did ended up recovering it, but that gave me a little bit of a heart attack.
Yes.
And we also had, for punt returns, we had Kalen Newton. He was out there. He got a pretty good return for 19 yards. And then we even had Brad Lester out there. Or Barton Lester. Sorry, Brad Lester.
I was about to say Brad Lester. He was a running back for like 10 years ago. Longer than that, actually.
Yeah, Barton Lester, who got a punt return. So we've tried a few guys out there at punt return. As far as kicks go, I mean, Honors did pretty well. He did miss one. And so, I mean, he is such a consistent guy. It did kind of stink. I think he was up to like 18 or 19 straight kicks that he had, or field goals that he had made. So that kind of hurt that he missed that one. But
I think that was a high snap. I was watching it live, and I was like, it messed his timing up. And I'm not saying Honors is perfect, but I was like, yeah, that was I wish they could put an asterisk by these and say that was not on him.
Yeah, and I think even I remember seeing the laces too, which I know kind of messes with kickers sometimes. It wasn't perfect.
I think the guy had to it wasn't where the snap needed to be, and I think the guy had to just rush to get it down. So you're probably right. It probably wasn't in the right position.
Yeah, but that stinks. Like that's something like I wish he had made all five, but hey, he's still doing great this season. And I'm not going to harp on it too much. I mean, and most of the kicks Anders had were through the end, or at least in the end zone for kickoff. So I feel like he's doing well. And I mean, if anything, he's getting his percentage. His kicking percentage is still pretty high.
Yeah, Harsin didn't even harp on him. He praised him. He said, Anders, he's like, because of him, we were in the game after the game. So, I mean, he wants them to make them all, but he didn't even say, well, we missed that one. He gave him total praise.
Yeah, I mean, when you make 4 field goals and a half, it's usually not a good sign for your offense. But hey, at least you're on the scoreboard. And
at least you got a guy that can make 4, right? It'd be,
yeah.
If you can't make those, and you don't have any points.
Yeah, Auburn would not have any points, or we would have said we're going for it on 4th down. And
yeah,
I don't know how that would have gone. I did want to talk about I feel like it was the play that kind of sparked Auburn, which was the punt block by Kalen Newton, and then Barton Lester recovered it in the end zone. So, man, that is some surreal kind of fun stuff. Even like Kalen Newton said, this was a surreal moment. It was definitely the best moment of my Auburn career, and I'm grateful for it. I saw a picture floating around the internet of Cam Newton at his Heisman Trophy ceremony with the Heisman Trophy, and he got a picture with Kalen Newton, his little brother. And you got to think, like, Kalen Newton has been dreaming about playing college football for a long time. And for him to get such a big play in this game that ultimately I think got Auburn motivated to win this game. Like, I think without that, I don't think we win. I mean, I really don't. But that was a huge moment for Kalen, and super glad to see that he got that.
Yeah, he got a shout out twice, Harsin, before he walked off, and in his official post game press conference, Kalen got a shout out. So I agree with you. I think nothing could go wrong. I mean, if anything goes wrong that led to points, we don't win. We needed all of them. So absolutely think that was huge. If we don't get that, you're right. Let's be honest, we didn't score a touchdown until like the 59th minute. So yeah, I don't know that we get those points any other way.
Yeah, I really don't think so. I mean, at that point, we needed it. Our team needed it just for morale. And hey, we sent the house, and it's cool to see it. Like, I feel like our special teams has the capability when we need to send the house and get a paw on the ball. We've done it now a couple of times during the season, so pretty excited to see that. And I think that could be a big play when we have some more SEC teams that we need to get a good momentum shifter. And our team seems to be capable of doing that. All right. I did also want to mention about our punter. So I think you and I were kind of watching Oscar for this game. And because, last game he was booming the ball almost 50 yards on average. And we were trying to see, like, is Oscar Chapman, is he going to continue to do that? And I think our answer to that question was yes. He ended up having 46-yard average punts on 5 punts. So he did his job and did well on all of his punts. So I think that's a big success for Auburn to have a guy like Oscar Chapman out there that can, and a lot of those punts are really high, which allows the defense to get down there and pretty much there's nowhere for the guy to move. No option for a return. So love to see Oscar continue to do well at punting. All right, Jared, any other final thoughts about this? I'm going to say it was a scare of a game. We did win. My first thought was embarrassment. But an embarrassment would have been we lost. I still feel like it was embarrassment to some extent, but I think it was more of a scare because Auburn teams of previous have come out with wins. I'm thinking about the more recent one against Jacksonville State from a few years back where we had to go to overtime to beat Jacksonville State. So, man, I'm just glad we got out of this one with a win. But any other final thoughts?
Yeah, to make myself feel better, in case fans forget, Nick Saban's first year, he did lose to Louisiana Monroe, and Kirby Smart's first year, he went into overtime with Nicholls State. So, this stuff happens. I was not saying that during the game.
Nah, me either.
I was not this level-headed, but this stuff does happen. It's a new coaching staff. It shouldn't, but it does. And, we got the W. Let's focus on the 98-yard touchdown drive because that's impressive no matter what. Definitely impressive with your backup quarterback when you had to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then pretty much good defense on the second half. I feel like we can definitely focus on that. And the defense has got to do that the rest like all 60 minutes of the game. Like they can't just focus on the second half, or else, man, we're gonna have some issues.
Yep, I agree.
All right, Jared. Before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter @JAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.